Daily changes exceeding 10,000, rest assured to collect poor comparison, not worthy of practicing martial arts. Poor foundation in bones, not worthy of practicing martial arts. Low talent, not worthy of practicing martial arts. No background, not worthy of practicing martial arts. Sorry, my martial arts have opened a simple mode. Practice diamond iron cloth shirt, normal mode. 100 years of hard work. Simple mode. Bathe in warm water for 1 hour. Practice the heaven slashing and blade pulling technique, normal mode. 200 years of hard work. Simple mode. Swung the knife 500 times. Practice 8-armed dragon elephant, normal mode. 300 years of hard work. Simple mode. Stand for 1 hour. Su Chen travels through chaotic times and opens up a simple mode of martial arts. Any martial arts and techniques can be practiced, climbed, and even surpassed in a simple mode. With the help of panels, he constantly becomes stronger, climbs to the highest level, and monopolizes the blue sky. Keywords of the novel. It's all about practicing martial arts. Why did you activate the simple mode without a pop-up window? It's all about practicing martial arts. Why did you activate the simple mode? Download the complete TXT collection, all about practicing martial arts. Why did you activate the simple mode? Read the latest chapters. Chapter 1. Difficulties in the world, simple mode. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1. Difficulties in the world, simple mode. Deqian, Qinzhou, Baishur City. The bright sun shines brightly, and the clear sky stretches for thousands of miles. Ga, ga. A crow screamed mournfully, flapping its wings and soaring over the mountains, forests, farmland, city walls, and tall buildings, diving down and landing on the window of a dilapidated mudslide house. With a sudden sound, as if startled by something, he flapped his wings and flew high. Ah! In the room, Su Chen suddenly sat up. The mottled and fragmented memories, like swords, were constantly inserted, causing him unbearable pain. I've traveled. After a while, Su Chen, who was receiving memories, murmured to himself. In his past life, Su Chen was a truck driver who collided with a runaway red flag at a certain turning point while driving at night. The red flag was smashed to pieces, and he also fell into a coma due to not being able to turn and collide with the mountain in time. When you wake up again, it's already another world. This is a world similar to ancient China, but it does not belong to any dynasty. The dynasty he lived in was called the Deqian dynasty, with a history of over 700 years. After more than 700 years of founding the country, Deqian still couldn't escape the fate of the dynasty and had already reached a state of declining sun. At the end of the dynasty, chaos was rampant, and the common people were hanging upside down, causing unbearable suffering. Various gangs have sprung up like mushrooms after rain, oppressing the good and causing trouble on the side. And the original identity was forced to death by a small gang because of the house. Half a month ago, a gang approached their original identity and forced them to buy and sell their house. The original body refused to sell at a low price. However, that night, Su Chen was beaten and warned by 2 people in black. Ginchen knew it was done by the Wild Dog gang, so he reported it to the official. However, the Yamen guard refused to pay attention to him and drove him away, threatening to teach him a lesson if he came back. This left him extremely disappointed. But for some reason, the members of the Wild Dog gang never appeared again. He thought the matter was over, but 3 days ago, 2 members of the Blackwater gang came to see him again. Originally, the Wild Dog gang had been replaced by the Blackwater gang. They found Su Chen and asked him to pack his things and get lost. The original aura was formed, and it was learned from the other party that their house was blocking the gang's financial luck and had to be demolished. They gave the original body 3 days, but when the deadline came, the original body still refused to move, so they beat the original body up and asked him to move out within 1 day, otherwise he would bear the consequences. With a mix of grief and anger, and the dual blessing of internal injury and external trauma, his soul returned to the West and was occupied by Su Qinzhou's nest. After accepting the memories of her original body, Su Chen only felt a headache, as if feeling the helpless despair of her original body. Gang bullying has become a daily phenomenon here, and ordinary people are constantly being exploited. Living in such an era, the lower-class people have to exhaust all their strength just by living. Blackwater Gang. Su Chen muttered in a low voice, his expression solemn. The Blackwater Gang has not obtained the land deed, so they will definitely not let him go. These gangs, with their despicable means and ineffective coercion and inducement, will directly engage in violence, especially with the government's inaction, further fueling their unbridled spirit. With Su Chen alone, it is absolutely impossible to be a rival to the gang. Unless practicing martial arts. Su Chen pondered, but a transparent panel came to mind. Name: Su Chen, martial arts. None, simple mode. 0. Can be activated after obtaining martial arts. This is his golden finger, which can open a simple mode to quickly master any martial arts. But it hasn't been turned on yet. As far as Su Chen knows, there are warriors in this world. Although I don't know if it's as powerful as in previous martial arts novels, the status of a warrior is very high. Behind many industries, there are figures of warriors. It is said that the leader of the Blackwater Gang is a warrior, which is why the Wild Dog Gang was defeated. Practicing martial arts is necessary. Su Chen firmly said, not only to open the golden finger, but also to live well. In the apocalyptic dynasty, money, power, and housing are all floating clouds. Only with strong personal strength can one survive better. Dong dong dong. Su Chen, don't pretend to be dead, let the labor and capital come out. Just as I was thinking about it, suddenly there was a hurried knocking on the door and a slightly arrogant shouting and cursing outside. It's from the Blackwater Gang. After hearing this, Su Chen's eyes darkened slightly. He didn't expect that the people from the Blackwater Gang would come knocking upon him as soon as he woke up. There are many of them, and if they go out without permission, it may result in the same outcome as their original self. But if they don't go out, they will sooner or later break through the door and break in. At that time, they will inevitably be beaten up. Until now, Su Chen's body still hurts faintly. If he were to be beaten again, he was afraid that he would also step into the same old world. Mad, stinky kid, don't force labor to knock on the door. The knocking on the door became increasingly rapid and loud, like the sound of a life-threatening bell. Spell it. Su Chen gritted his teeth, picked up a blunt kitchen knife and a chopping axe, and walked out. With a loud bang, the door was violently kicked open. 3 members of the Blackwater Gang, exuding a strong aura and full of flesh, walked in with a gloomy face. As soon as he entered the door, he saw Su Chen holding an axe and a kitchen knife walking towards the 3 of them. What do you want to do? Su Chen's fierce appearance, combined with the dim light, made the 3 of them tremble with fear. Don't come over. Seeing that Su Chen didn't answer at all, he just walked towards the 3 of them. The 3 of them, who had a fierce expression before, suddenly panicked. The 3 of them never expected that Su Chen would take action if they didn't agree. They came in a hurry this time without any weapons, and when they encountered the fierce Su Chen, they were really afraid that he wouldn't take action. Feeling nervous, the 3 of them retreated in succession, speaking harshly as they retreated. However, Su Chen remained silent, his fierce gaze fixed on the 3 of them, approaching step by step. This made the 3 of them even more frightened and hurriedly moved away from Su Chen. Su Chen, you're seeking death. The Blackwater Gang won't let you go. One person said, trying to delay Su Chen and awaken his fear of the Blackwater Gang. He picked up a wooden stick and pointed it at Su Chen, seeming to have confidence, but his trembling body betrayed him. Get lost. Su Chen let out a low growl, his hoarse voice carrying a bone-chilling chill. The hand movements are not slow at all, making a posture of throwing the axe. The three of them were immediately frightened, showing a look of fear. Ignoring their faces, they scattered their feet and ran out. "Stinky kid, you wait, today's matter is not over." The three of them didn't intend to entangle with Su Chen anymore, left a harsh word, and turned around to run away. But the gaze that occasionally turned back was filled with murderous intent. Obviously, the three of them have been completely angered by Su Chen. Even if Su Chen has weapons next time, it will be more or less unlucky. Bang dang. Su Chen let go of his dull knife and axe, panting heavily and his tense nerves slightly relaxed. But the big stone hanging in my heart did not fall. He knew that the three people who had left this time would soon come back. Next time, if you want to scare three people, it's probably impossible. At that time, he will definitely be in danger of his life. His face changed and he stood in place for a long time before turning around and entering the room. In a moment, Su Chen walked out, but the difference was that the cloth bag around his waist was slightly raised. "I can hide for a while, but I can't hide for a lifetime. Since that's the case, then let's practice martial arts." After firmly believing, Su Chen came to an ancient courtyard with all his belongings, and the plaque above it was marked with the 4 characters, Hong Family Martial Arts School. This is the only martial arts school in the outer city that has a high reputation and can learn martial arts with money, which is also the purpose of his trip. Standing in front of the door, Su Chen hesitated for a moment before finally walking towards the courtyard. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. Iron Wire Fist, Using Force to Beat Dogs. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2. Iron Wire Fist, Using Force to Beat Dogs. Are you going to apprentice? In the courtyard, a skinny old man scrutinized Su Chen, his eyes piercing as if to see through Su Chen. Su Chen nodded, his expression serious. The old man said, "If you pay 5 taels of apprenticeship and only teach for 3 months, you will be counted as a named disciple. If you haven't started yet, you will have to continue paying. Have you figured it out?" Su Chen arched his hand and said, "I've figured it out." The old man remained unmoved and added, "You are older and your bones are well formed. Even if you study hard and practice hard, you may not have achieved anything. If you insist, then pay." Upon hearing this, Su Chen handed over the money he had already prepared. The old man quickly called out a strong man and said, "Liemo, you can take him with you these days." "Yes, Master Hong." Liemo nodded and looked at Su Chen. "Junior brother, come with me." Liemo took Su Chen to collect clothes from the martial arts school and introduced the identity of the old man. The old man's name is Hong Ming, the founder of the Hong Family Martial Arts School. And Liemo is Hong Ming's 7th official disciple, who is usually responsible for teaching several disciples from the outer courtyard. We usually practice in this courtyard, and since you've just arrived, you'll stand up like them and hone your arm strength first. After a while, I'll teach you martial arts. Liemo took Su Chen to the yard and said to him, then wanted to teach Su Chen to stand on the stake. After hearing this, Su Chen furrowed his brows lightly. He didn't come this time to practice pile skills, but to directly practice martial arts. So he spoke directly and said, "Senior brother, can you directly teach me martial arts?" After hearing this, Liemo chuckled lightly and said, "Junior brother, I know your thoughts. Everyone who comes to the martial arts school is as anxious as you, wanting to practice martial arts. But it should be noted that practicing martial arts is not something that happens overnight. If you want to practice martial arts well, you must lay a solid foundation. Once you have mastered the skills of Zhuanggong, I will naturally teach you boxing techniques." He advised Su Chen, hoping that the other party would not be too ambitious, so as not to end up with nothing. However, Su Chen did not answer. Instead, he took out an ingot of silver from his pocket and handed it to Liemo. His voice was sincere, saying, can you please practice your martial arts a few times for me, senior brother? You. Liemo stared blankly at Su Chen, unsure of what to say for a moment. He stared at Su Chen for a long time, but Su Chen did not avoid his gaze. Seeing Su Chen so determined, Liemo sighed and said, well, since you want to see, then I'll practice it. Thank you, elder martial brother. Please accept this. Su Chen thanked him and handed the silver to Liemo. Liemo didn't say much and expressionlessly accepted the money. Immediately, Liemo began practicing his boxing skills with Su Chen. This is the Hong family iron wire fist, with a total of 36 moves. Please take a look. While speaking, Liemo practiced his boxing skills. His movements were smooth, his moves flowing smoothly, and he completed them all in one go. In less than a stick of incense, he displayed all his martial arts in front of Su Chen. Did you see it clearly? After finishing the fight, Liemo asked. Su Chen shook his head, and Liemo didn't care, as if he knew the result. This time, I will slow down the speed. After speaking, he practiced martial arts again. However, he didn't notice at all that Su Chen's pupils were slightly dilated. Name: Su Chen, Martial Arts. Iron Thread Fist, Beginner 1%, Simple Mode. Iron Wire Fist 0 times, 1 tael of silver per time. In my mind, the transparent panel has changed, and the martial arts section has now presented Iron Wire Fist. Simple Mode. 1 or 2 silver coins at a time. Su Chen, who had just obtained martial arts skills, was still a bit happy, but when he saw that he wanted to earn money, his joy disappeared instantly. He paid money to learn martial arts and bribed his senior brother. His wealth is already less than 1 or 2 silver coins. Alright, junior brother, I'll also show you the practice of the martial arts. Let me teach you the Zhuangong skill. The second drill has ended, and Liemo no longer plans to continue the drill. Although Su Chen's martial arts will be taught in the future, it will be a while since then. Now, Su Chen should still practice the pile technique well. This time, Su Chen did not refuse, but let Liemo teach him. It took half a day for Liemo to hand over the essentials of the stake technique to Su Chen. Then he left and let Su Chen practice alone. There are more than 10 disciples in the entire courtyard, so he naturally cannot waste all his time on Su Chen. After Liemo left, Su Chen pondered while practicing pile driving. I thought that by opening the golden finger, I could quickly practice martial arts. It seems that I was too naive. Now, I'm doing well and have completely offended the Blackwater gang. I don't have much money left on me. This made Su Chen's heart slightly heavy. No, there is still hope. The martial arts displayed on the panel have progress values. Although it is not a bonus panel, it may be a proficiency panel. I can try to increase the martial arts progress through cultivation. As soon as he thought of it, Su Chen ignored Liemo's attention and began to secretly hide in the corner practicing boxing. However, half an hour has passed and the progress of martial arts on the panel has not changed at all. An afternoon passed, and Su's dust only rose by 1 percentage point at a disappointing pace. During this period, Liemo observed Su Chen multiple times, but when he saw that Su Chen did not listen to advice, he gave up. It's getting dark. Su Chen looked at the sky and most of the people inside the martial arts school had left, while Liemo was still packing up in the yard. He pursed his lips and came to Liemo to help him tidy up together. Liemo glanced and asked, "Junior brother Su, I'll handle this small matter. You can go back." Su Chen smiled and continued to help. Seeing this, Liemo vaguely guessed something and didn't say much. After a moment, Liemo tidied up and asked, "Brother Su, do you have anything to do?" After hesitating for a moment, Su Chen arched his hand and said, "Senior brother, could you please take me back?" Liemo was taken aback by the words and gave Su Chen a deep glance. Under the gaze of the other person, he nodded and said, "Okay, you can wait for me." Pingshur Street. Chen Ergu and his two younger brothers looked gloomy. They had been waiting in front of Su Chen's house for half a day, but still hadn't arrived. As soon as Chen Ergu thought of being scared and fleeing by Su Chen before, he became furious and wished to kill Su Chen. This time, the three of them had enough weapons and were standing by Su Chen's doorstep, waiting for a rabbit. "Big brother, look, that kid has appeared." Angry Chen Ergu stood up immediately upon hearing this, clenched the iron rod, and fixed his eyes on it. Under the dim starlight, two figures slowly approached. Chen Ergu and his two younger brothers walked toward Su Chen, with slow and heavy footsteps, carrying a chill. Hong Family Martial Arts School. Before he could get close, he paused in his footsteps and his expression froze. Seeing the style of Li Mo's clothes clearly, his heart trembled. Mad, when did this kid start dating disciples of the Hong Family Martial Arts School? Chen Ergu spat lightly and a hint of hesitation flashed on his face. They are just low-level thugs of the Blackwater gang, and they are not qualified to be compared to the official disciples of the Hong Family Martial Arts School. Although the Hong Family Martial Arts School may not be considered a top martial arts school, it is also well known. Its official disciples have much stronger strength than them. Let's go, let's let him go this time. If we teach him another lesson next time, I won't believe it. The Hong Family Martial Arts School can bless him for a while and even bless him for a lifetime. After Chen Ergu's expression changed for a while, he gritted his teeth and said. Faced with Su Chen's repeated escapes, he held a fire in his heart. This fire will gradually accumulate over time, and when it erupts, it will completely take Su Chen's life. Watching Chen Ergu go away, Su Chen breathed a sigh of relief and then looked at Li Mo, clasping his fists and saying, "Thank you very much, senior brother." End of this chapter. Chapter 3. Abacus fails, release. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3. Abacus fails, release. Li Mo waved his hand and said, "Junior brother, although I helped you this time, these gangs will not give up easily. You still need to be careful. If possible, why not move near the martial arts school? No matter how reckless they are, they dare not go there recklessly." Su Chen nodded. If he had money, he also wanted to. "Alright, it's getting late, I should go back too," Li Mo said, then took out an ingot of silver from his pocket and handed it to the bewildered Su Chen. "I didn't know why you were in such a hurry before, so I accepted it first. Now I'll give it back to you. You should keep the money for your own use." "Senior brother." Su Chen spoke up, but was interrupted by Li Mo. "Take it, I won't miss your little money." Putting the money in Su Chen's hand, Li Mo turned around and left. "Thank you very much, senior brother." Looking at Li Mo's distant figure, Su Chen murmured with a deep sincerity. Until Li Mo disappeared into the night, Su Chen took a light breath and then returned to the room. Entering the room, Su Chen's face suddenly darkened. The whole family felt as if they had been invaded by bandits. The cabinet collapsed, pots and pans fell to the ground, and clothes and blankets scattered in all directions. There is actually no place to rest in the room. Damn it! Su Chen cursed inwardly, knowing without hesitation that it was Chen Ergu's masterpiece. He took a deep breath, calmed his mood, and simply tidied up the room. After washing up, he returned to the room and his consciousness entered the panel. How should I use it? Looking at the panel, Su Chen pondered. Suddenly, Su Chen felt his hand holding the silver empty, and 1 or 2 silver coins had disappeared. And the panel also found changes. Simple mode. Iron wire fist 1 time, 5 taels of silver per time, use it. Su Chen probed. Simple mode activation. Punch out of thin air for 10 minutes, and you can practice iron wire fist to a low level. So simple. Su Chen was stunned for a moment, somewhat skeptical of the authenticity of the panel prompts. He reached out his hand, punched out of thin air, and then saw the progress of the iron wire fist jump to 3%. This is too simple. Su Chen's expression froze, unable to conceal his surprise. Come again. +1%, +1%. 10 minutes later, Su Chen started practicing iron wire fist, and the previously relaxed muscles on his arms instantly became slightly stronger. Between waving casually, one can feel a sense of power that has never been felt before. The 30.6 moves are deeply ingrained in one's mind, as if they have become instincts, and can be used as one pleases. He looked at the panel, and at this moment, the panel had completely refreshed. Name: Su Chen, Martial Arts. Iron Thread Fist, Shaoqing 1%, Simple Mode. Iron Wire Fist 0 times, 5 taels of silver per time. Next time you activate the simple mode, it will be 5 taels of silver. Making money: as long as I have money, I can quickly complete my iron wire fist. Su Chen made up his mind and wore a resolute expression on his face. Su. There's someone outside. Suddenly, Su Chen heard a faint sound coming from outside the door, and he was startled. With the faint moonlight, poke your head out and look outward. It's from the Blackwater gang. He recognized at a glance that the sneaky figures on the path in front of the door were the 3 of Chen Ergu who had just left. The 3 of them went back and forth, obviously guessing that Li Mo would not stay at Su Chen's house. So I took the opportunity to come back and plan to deal with Su Chen. It has to be said that the 3 of them are working on a good abacus. But unfortunately, they will miscalculate today. Su Chen's eyes flashed a sharp edge, with a faint chill in them. At this moment, new and old grudges erupted completely. He turned around and picked up the chopping axe, his figure gradually disappearing into the darkness. Outside. Big brother, this kid is indeed still here. The 3 of them saw the faint light shining in Su Chen's house from a distance, and their faces lit up with joy. Chen Ergu sneered and said, "Humph, he only lives in such a place. Where else can he go?" "But big brother, didn't he say he climbed up to the Hong family martial arts school? If we take action against him, in case the Hong family martial arts school takes action," another younger brother worried. "What are you afraid of? This kid probably got lucky enough to get into the Hong family martial arts school. As long as we kill him tonight, even if the Hong family martial arts school knows, what can they do to us? If it's not good enough, we'll hide outside for a while, and I don't believe it. The Hong family martial arts school will care about him." Chen Ergu let out a cold snort, and as the distance approached, the sound of footsteps became lighter and lighter. "Be careful not to be caught by this kid. This time, you can't let him run away again." The 3 of them slowly approached, and Chen Ergu waved his hand, gesturing for the 2 subordinates to act separately. He guarded the door and asked them to guard the window to prevent Su Chen from breaking through and escaping. After preparing everything, he suddenly exerted force and kicked open the wooden door, but due to too much force, he stumbled and almost fell to the ground. The wooden door is not even closed. Chen Ergu's heart tightened and he quickly looked up, only to find that there was no trace of Su Chen in the room. What about people? Ah! Suddenly, Chen Ergu heard a scream from the window, his eyes fixed. "I still want to run." Fortunately, he had foresight and knew that Su Chen would break the window and run away, so he arranged for someone in advance. Now it seems that his subordinates have captured Su Chen. He quickly withdrew and walked out, but as soon as he arrived at the door, he was met by a blow of an axe. With a click. The axe directly struck Chen Ergu's chest, piercing through his body. You. Chen Ergu stared blankly at Su Chen, his eyes filled with surprise. He didn't expect that Su Chen would dare to kill him. Su Chen's face was now full of ferocity. After crossing over, the long period of mental repression was fully released in the moment of hitting Chen Ergu. Ah! A miserable scream pulled Su Chen back from Chen Ergu's death. He turned his head and saw that there was still one person left who had not solved it. No, we can't let him run away. Once the other party runs away, he will definitely be chased by the Blackwater gang. Currently, he does not have the ability to fight against the Blackwater gang. So Su Chen pulled out his axe and let out a sizzling sound, blood rushing out. A few drops of crimson blood splashed onto Su Chen's face, adding a hint of solemnity. He rushed out suddenly, with a speed that was several points faster than that person. Just as the person was about to escape, the axe in Su Chen's hand suddenly fell off and he threw it fiercely. With a whoosh, he hit the person's back and his footsteps suddenly stopped, his body tilting forward and down. Ha! Su Chen's 3 let out a long sigh, all the nervousness turned into sweat at this moment, soaking his clothes. Fortunately, the nearby neighbors have all moved away, otherwise such a commotion would have caught their attention long ago. The aftermath of the murder came, and he looked at the bodies of the 3, his face changing, but eventually returned to calm. After a moment, Su Chen took out some coins from the 3 of them and disposed of their bodies. After finishing these, he returned to his room. Unfortunately, it's only half a liang or less, it's not enough for me to activate the simple mode again. He has already fallen in love with the simple mode. This way of cultivation is really enjoyable, but unfortunately he doesn't have enough money. I won't hide the deaths of the 3 for long. When the Blackwater gang reacts, they will definitely deal with me again. Su Chen was lost in thought, with a strange light flashing in his eyes. Looking at the messy room, he had a vague idea in his heart. But now, let's go to bed first. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. Sales of land titles, Fist Technique Achievements. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4. Sales of land titles, Fist Technique Achievements. The next morning, a ray of sunshine shines on the earth, and a new day arrives. Su Chen woke up early, washed up briefly, and left without even having breakfast. On the street, there were already vendors selling one after another, and he found a breakfast stall to make do with a simple meal. Then he turned east and west to another sparsely populated street. Pingsan Street. There is a pawn shop here called Han's Pawn Shop. Holding the land deed in his arms, Su Chen's gaze gradually became firm. His purpose of this trip is to sell land deeds. With his current strength, it remains to be seen whether he can secure a house or not. It's better to sell it and exchange it for money to enhance his own strength. The Han's Pawn Shop has been rooted here since I remember it, and it is quite famous in the nearby area. Being able to stand firm in the outer city surrounded by gangs clearly has some skills. There are rumors that there is someone above the pawn shop. Standing in front of the pawn shop door, Su Chen pondered the information he had gathered. There are rumors in the community that gangs take turns, but only the Han Pawn Shop remains steadfast. Although there is a tendency to exaggerate, it is enough to demonstrate that the Han Pawn Shop has a significant behind-the-scenes influence and is not afraid of the Blackwater gang. After hesitating for a few moments, Su Chen walked into the pawn shop. Although it was morning, the pawn shop window was lined up early. Are they also here to pawn the land deed? Su Chen stood in the back and accidentally caught a glimpse of the land deed held by the 3 people in front. It seems that they are selling land deeds with the same intention as Su Chen. The attire of these people is better than him. Do you want to sell the land deed? Show me your proof. The shopkeeper kept a mustache and took the certificate and land deed from the first customer, which contained information about the house. Shopkeeper, my house is surrounded by mountains and rivers, with clear mountains and beautiful waters. It's a great place. Seeing the shopkeeper hesitating to speak, the old man stuttered and said something. Upon hearing this, the shopkeeper looked up at the other person and casually asked, "What price do you want to sell for?" "At least 20 taels," the old man immediately replied. 20 taels. The shopkeeper sneered, "A stinky ditch and a small hill are worth 20 taels. This The old man was a bit flustered and was soon interrupted impatiently by the shopkeeper. Give it a compromise, 10 taels of silver, whether you like to sell or not. In the end, under the helplessness of the old man gritting his teeth, he agreed to the transaction and both parties signed a contract. Do you also want to sell land deeds? Soon it was the second guest's turn, and the shopkeeper saw the land deed in his hand at a glance. The big man nodded, took out the voucher and handed it to the shopkeeper, then said, Master, I'm different from him. My house is far from the hustle and bustle, close to nature, and is a holy land for summer vacation. It's suitable for those nobles to live in, and I can also go hunting. As he spoke, he held 3 fingers deep inside and said, so it will be slightly more expensive, at 30 taels. Unexpectedly, the shopkeeper still sneered and replied, the location is remote and there are few people living there. Those noble young masters don't like it. Compromise, 15 taels, whether to sell or not. Master, this is a good location. I'll sell it for 20 taels, 20 taels. The big man suddenly became anxious. The shopkeeper didn't speak, but silently handed back the voucher. Upon seeing the situation, the big man opened his mouth and finally reluctantly uttered 2 words. I sell. Next. The transaction between the two was quickly completed, and it was Su Chen's turn to have a guest in front of him. He leaned forward and took out the voucher, his hands trembling slightly as he held them. Obviously, the shopkeeper's 2 rounds of bargaining gave him a bad feeling. Shopkeeper, my house has smooth transportation and is located in a market, making it a great place to do business. All the shops there can make money. Oh, how much do you want? 30. Oh no, 40 taels. The shopkeeper shook his head upon hearing this and said, transportation is indeed convenient, but rural markets and ant-sized land are not worth this price. Is it a compromise of 2 or 10 taels? 10 taels. Not for sale, not for sale, it's too low. The man blew his beard and stared at him. He saw that the shopkeeper always compromised, so he deliberately raised the price by 10 taels. However, the other party compromised twice and directly set the price at 10 taels. No matter how short he was of money, he couldn't sell it so cheaply, so he shook his head, put away the land deed, and turned around to leave. Finally, it's Su Chen's turn. Su Chen took out the voucher and handed it to the other party without saying anything. What else can we say? What needs to be said about being by the mountains and by the water, being in a prime location, and having developed transportation, has all been mentioned by the first 3 people. Don't you have anything to say? The shopkeeper looked at Su Chen with some confusion. The first 3 people did their best to introduce the benefits of the house. It was Su Chen's turn to become mute, which surprised him a bit. Upon hearing this, Su Chen pursed his lips and said, my house doesn't have too much fancy, but it's been taken in by the Blackwater gang. Oh. The shopkeeper was taken aback for a moment, looked at Su Chen in surprise, and then carefully examined the land deed. Pingshire Street is indeed the territory of the Blackwater gang. Tell me, how much do you want to sell? 20 taels. It's a bit high, will it be sold for 10 taels or not? 19 taels. 11 liang. After some negotiations, both parties made a deal at a price of 13 taels, with one hand paying and the other delivering. After leaving the pawn shop, Su Chen's arms were already filled with 13 taels of silver. He murmured softly, panel, recharge 5 taels, and activate simple mode. Then he saw that the silver in his arms suddenly decreased by 5 taels. Simple mode activation. Punch out of thin air for 20 minutes, and you can practice iron wire fist to the fullest. Su Chen clenched his fist and punched out of thin air. Plus 1% effective. I found a deserted place to continue punching. Plus 1%, plus 1%. 20 minutes later, with a gentle force striking, the panel underwent a change. Name. Su Chen, Martial Arts. Iron Thread Fist, De Cheng 1%, Simple Mode. Iron Wire Fist 0 times, 10 taels of silver per time, next time it's 10 taels. Seeing the amount for the next simple mode activation, Su Chen was taken aback and somewhat helpless. He was covered all over, and the money from selling the land deed was clearly not enough to recharge. Since it's not enough, let's keep the money for renting a house next time. Su Chen shook his head and noticed in his heart. Then he turned his gaze to his own arm, which changed greatly. Originally, he could only see a small amount of muscle. But at this moment, the muscles on the arm are clearly visible, even without the need for gripping. A strong sense of power surged into my arms, and my understanding of the martial arts became even more profound. Ha! Why is there an extra light red line on my arm? Suddenly, Su Chen's eyes froze, and as he contracted and relaxed his muscles, there seemed to be a faint thread of blood. Iron Wire Fist, Iron Wire, doesn't it mean this blood line? Ask senior brother Li Mo when you go to the martial arts school this afternoon. Release her palm and Su Chen walked towards her teeth. Next, he plans to rent a house. End of this chapter. Chapter 5, 8th Disciple, Qin Hao. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5, 8th Disciple, Qin Hao. Because she found a dental clinic, it took less than an hour for Su Chen to find a suitable place, a courtyard house. The house has a good location and is relatively independent, but the price is slightly higher. It costs 2.5 taels of silver per month, and the other party does not agree to a short-term lease. Helplessly, Su Chen can only rent it for 6 months. Suddenly, Su Chen paid 3 taels of silver, which made him feel a bit distressed. But fortunately, there is finally a place to settle in the outer city. Subsequently, Su Chen took the time to purchase some daily necessities and brought the previously packaged items into the new house. He didn't go back to his old house, afraid of being discovered by the Blackwater gang, so he packed it in advance and stored it in a certain inn. In the afternoon, Su Chen came to the martial arts school. As soon as he entered the martial arts school, he noticed that everyone was gathered together. It was only when he approached that he found out that someone had practiced Iron Wire Fist. I remember his name was Qin Hao. He had only been beginners for less than half a month and had already trained Iron Wire Fist. He has such a strong talent. I also started half a month ago, but I haven't reached the threshold yet. I can't compare, they have extraordinary talents. Everyone was discussing with each word, their voices filled with envy. Standing in the crowd, Su Chen's eyes flickered as he looked at Qin Hao, who had been surrounded into the inner courtyard ahead. From the conversations of these people, Su Chen also roughly understood the difficulty of practicing Iron Wire Fist. The difficulty of practicing Iron Wire Fist varies from person to person. Those with talent can complete it in 10.5 days. A person without talent may not necessarily achieve success in a year or two. Once mastered, a subtle blood thread will condense on both arms. Qin Hao's talent is obviously extremely high, and he trained Iron Wire Fist to the form of Iron Wire in half a month. Even among the many disciples recruited by Hong Ming, they are outstanding, no wonder they are highly valued by Hong Ming. With such thoughts in mind, Su Chen lowered his head and glanced at his arm, a thin blood thread as thin as iron wire, faintly visible. If Hong Ming knew that Su Chen had become an Iron Wire in just 30 minutes, I'm afraid it wasn't Qin Hao, but Su Chen, who had unlimited glory at this time. What are you all looking at? Seize the time to cultivate, maybe you can still quickly get started like Qin Jr. brother. At this moment, Li Mo walked over and shouted loudly to everyone. The group of students quickly dispersed and practiced independently. In the afternoon, the martial arts school became Qin Hao's personal show, and Hong Ming generously expressed his respect for Qin Hao. He threatened to accept Qin Hao as his official disciple as long as he could stabilize his bloodline within a month. There are many named disciples in the entire Hong family martial arts school, and if you include those who left, there are at least hundreds. But there are only 7 formal disciples, and the last one is Li Mo, who was recruited 2 years ago. This promise made the middle-aged boy Qin Hao extremely excited, and his martial arts practice became more diligent. Others say that Qin Hao is a commoner of a merchant and has a low status. The reason why I was able to come to the martial arts school was also through great efforts. Now that I have the opportunity to become a disciple of the martial arts school, I naturally dare not slack off at all. Perhaps stimulated by Qin Hao, everyone's passion seemed to be ignited. One by one, they were like wild beasts in love, practicing like wolves and tigers. However, compared to the hard work of others, Su Chen's attitude is slightly lazy. It's not that Su Chen doesn't want to cultivate, but the cultivation effect is too poor. It's better to use cheats. So after practicing on her own for a period of time, Su Chen gave up practicing. Anyway, his purpose of coming to the martial arts school today is not to cultivate. Junior brother Su, what's the problem with your cultivation? At this moment, Li Mo, who had stopped practicing with Su Chen, approached him and asked in confusion. He saw that Su Chen had not practiced, and guessed that the other party should have encountered a difficult problem, so he asked. Senior brother Li, I'm fine. Su Chen shook his head. Is it because of Qin Hao? Upon hearing this, Su Chen was taken aback. Li Mo raised his eyes slightly and muttered to himself, it's the first time since I joined the martial arts school that I've seen my master so happy. Upon hearing this, Su Chen asked, Senior brother, is Qin Hao's talent very strong? Strong. You haven't practiced your martial arts yet, and I don't know how difficult it is. Qin Hao can practice it in half a month, and his talent and foundation are probably the strongest among your group. Even as a formal disciple, no one can match him. Li Mo exclaimed, completely oblivious to the change in Su Chen's expression. Senior brother, besides Qin Hao, what is the shortest record? It should be senior brother. I heard he successfully cultivated within a month. Senior brother, how can you be considered as practicing iron wire fist? Su Chen asked curiously. Li Mo remained silent for a moment, intending to tell Su Chen not to be too ambitious, but when he thought about the performance of his disciples in the afternoon, it was not easy to dampen Su Chen's enthusiasm. So he said, according to my master, when practicing iron wire fist, as long as there is a bloodline on your hand, you will successfully take the first step. Only when the bloodline is completely stabilized can one truly get started. Then it changes from light red to red, which can be considered as entering the room. Turning from red to deep red is considered a major achievement. Finally, it was completely transformed into black, achieving perfection after a pause. He said again, however, each of these 4 stages is difficult. Ordinary people may not be able to get started for several years, and even if they get started, they may not be able to practice to perfection. Speaking of which, he thought of Qin Hao. You should know that he only started his studies more than 2 months ago, but Qin Hao was 1.5 months ahead of him, which shows that Qin Hao has great talent. Alright, don't ask so many questions. Your task now is to quickly learn how to stand up, and then I can teach you martial arts. Seeing Su Chen silent, Li Mo thought he had been hit and comforted before leaving. Is it a month? Su Chen murmured, as if lost in thought. If it weren't for me cheating, I wouldn't have gone to find Master Hong in a while. After all, I could have obtained a resource tilt, but now it seems that there's no need to rush for a while. He shook his head, dispelling the thoughts in his mind. Then, taking advantage of no one, he left the martial arts school. Li Mo, who had been guiding everyone, finally took a break when suddenly he caught a glimpse of Su Chen in the afterglow. He opened his mouth and then held back a sentence. This kid. In the following time, Su Chen's life became 2 points and 1 line. Home and tea house. Except for meal time, Su Chen mostly stays at the tea house. Sir, here are the peanuts and tea you want. The waiter has become accustomed to Su Chen's presence. He comes every morning and goes back at night, sitting for a whole day. Order a plate of peanuts, then hold a book in hand, occasionally dipping it in tea, as if copying on the table. For 10 consecutive days, the waiter had already met Su Chen. Faced with the waiter's gaze, Su Chen didn't care either. His gaze fell on the book, learning the words of this world. The writing of De Qian is somewhat similar to that of the Tang dynasty, but not entirely the same. I haven't read a book before, so I basically don't know the characters. So Su Chen took advantage of this time and went to the bookstore to search for several character recognition books, and started learning on his own. With the knowledge reserves of the previous world, Su Chen learned De Qian's writing 7 or 8 times. At the same time, he was studying while observing every move on the other side. That's the gang location of the Blackwater gang. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. Reading and Literacy, The Wrath of a Young Man. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6. Reading and Literacy, The Wrath of a Young Man. The Blackwater gang clearly learned about his killing of Qin Ergu, and in the previous few days, they even sent someone to catch Su Chen. Unfortunately, by that time Su Chen had already left Pingsher Street, and they could only return empty-handed. At first, Su Chen was worried that the members of the Blackwater gang would report to the authorities for handling, but now it seems that he was overthinking. The Blackwater gang doesn't care about the life or death of Qin Ergu at all. Based on observations during this period, there are only 3 true core members of the Blackwater gang. Leader Lu Heishui and his 2 capable generals. The rest of the people are basically recruited younger brothers, similar to thugs like Qin Ergu. Their lives are not worth mentioning to the Blackwater gang. After all, Qin Ergu, Zhang Ergu, and Lu Ergu died. The lack of Qin Ergu and the others was compensated for by the Blackwater gang in less than 2 days. Moreover, even if the Blackwater gang cares about Qin Ergu and others, they may not have time to seek revenge for them. There are many gangs in Baishir City, especially in the slums, with one gang almost every few streets. This also leads to the establishment and disappearance of gangs every few days. Su Chen observed for 10 days, of which 7 days were spent watching the Blackwater gang fight with other gangs. Every day we are either competing for territory, or on the road of competing for territory. If it weren't for Lu Heishui having some skills, I'm afraid the Blackwater gang would have been destroyed by other gangs before he could even seek revenge. The sky gradually darkened. The waiter walked upstairs and accidentally caught a glimpse of Su Chen, who was still in his position, with a stunned expression. At this usual time, Su Chen had already left the tea house and returned. Today was quite unusual. He didn't say much either. After waiting for a moment, he turned around and went downstairs. Su Chen's gaze turned towards the window, where something seemed to attract him. His eyebrows furrowed slightly, and there was something wrong with the Blackwater gang tonight. In the courtyard where the gang is located, almost all members of the Blackwater gang stand, even the gang leader Lu Blackwater has appeared. It seems there's a big move tonight. Su Chen, who was familiar with the Blackwater gang, couldn't help but speculate that in such a situation, he usually had to fight against the gang. Thinking of the recent conflict between the Blackwater gang and the Tiger gang, Su Chen's gaze narrowed slightly. Not long after, Su Chen closed the book, ate the last peanut in the plate, and stood up to leave. Night falls. Heishui gang courtyard. At this moment, there is a bright light. Lu Heishui stood in front of everyone and said, "Brothers, the people of the Tiger gang are taking our territory. Tonight, we will go kill them. Kill the Tiger gang." After promoting the slogans, Lu Heishui led his group of young brothers towards the territory of the Tiger gang with a strong and vigorous demeanor. There aren't too many tricks, just copy the guy and do it. On the street, only a few passers-by left quickly after seeing the Blackwater gang, making the entire street quiet. Quickly, Lu Heishui and others arrived at the territory of the Tiger gang. The members of the Tiger Gang clearly had anticipated and were waiting for Lu Heishui on the street. Lu Heishui, have you been sent to death? The leader of the Tiger Gang snorted coldly and sneered. This made Lu Heishui's already dark face even darker, and he said in a deep voice, just rely on you. Stop talking nonsense, brothers, kill me. Kill. After a brief conversation, the two sides quickly clashed. Bang 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 bang. The sound of metal and iron touching echoed continuously in the alley, and the sound of slaughter gradually infected the night, becoming bloody. Lu Heishui, how could your strength become so strong? After a stick of incense, the exhausted leader of the Tiger Gang was defeated by Lu Heishui's palm, trembling in his voice. Lu Heishui sneered and said, of course, my palm technique has improved. After speaking, he strode forward and suddenly came to the other person's face. Seeing this situation, the leader of the Tiger Gang gritted his teeth and knew that tonight might be a disaster. So his face turned fierce and he said, Lu Heishui, you want to kill me, dream. Before he could finish speaking, the leader of the Tiger Gang propped up his body and a carp stood up, ignoring his brothers, running towards the alley. Want to run? Upon seeing this, Lu Heishui's gaze fixed and he couldn't help but accelerate his pace. Others may be able to let go, but the leader of the Tiger Gang must die today. Hee, can't we run away anymore? Compared to the injured leader of the Tiger Gang, it is obvious that Lu Heishui is faster and will soon catch up with the opponent. At this moment, the leader of the Tiger Gang suddenly stopped in his tracks, turned around, and punched Lu Heishui with a long accumulated punch. This move was too sudden and caught Lu Heishui off guard. He didn't even have time to dodge, so he was hit by the opponent. With a loud bang, Lu Heishui immediately took a few steps back. His cheeks suddenly swelled up, and he pursed his lips to swallow the congestion, but his face became extremely ugly. You want to die? After being successfully attacked, Lu Heishui let out a roar and rushed towards the opponent. Both sides engaged in a fist-to-fist fight. You. With a thud, the leader of the Tiger Gang sprayed out a mouthful of blood, his eyes bulging, and he fell into a pool of blood. After the death of the leader of the Tiger Gang, the morale of his subordinates greatly decreased, and they had no intention of resisting anymore. They all put down their weapons and surrendered. However, at this moment, Lu Heishui's deep voice rang out, no one left. The slaughter has resurfaced. Busy until late at night, the people of the Blackwater Gang finally calmed down. Except for the lost brothers, everyone else had a smile on their face. After eliminating the Tiger Gang, they naturally accepted each other's wealth. However, due to Lu Heishui's injury and concerns about other gangs taking advantage of the situation, the territory was not taken over. Brothers, you've worked hard this time. We'll give you a reward tomorrow. Tonight, let's go back to our house and rest well. After Lu Heishui said a few words, he turned around and returned to the house. He was injured, and the injury was not minor. The leader of the Tiger Gang saw that the situation was not good and lacked the ability to turn things around, which was a completely harmless tactic. If he had not been attacked by the enemy before, Lu Heishui may not have been injured, but now he can only slowly recover from his injuries. The night is getting darker. Lu Heishui bandaged his wound and lay in bed, feeling tired. Who? Just as he closed his eyes, he suddenly felt a gentle breeze coming, and then saw a lingering shadow passing by his eyes. This instantly woke him up, and a warning sounded in his heart. He suddenly stood up and before he could even start, he heard a slight vibration coming from the air, and his heart suddenly trembled. Then he saw a huge fist pouncing on his face, and the shadow of the fist reflected in his pupils, expanding even more. With sharp eyes and quick hands, Lu Heishui jumped onto the bed and narrowly avoided Su Chen's attack. His words made Su Chen's pupils shrink slightly. The current action becomes even more chilling. Iron Wire Fist. Are you from the Hong family martial arts school? Lu Heishui exclaimed, but Su Chen remained silent and continued to attack. The injury to his body slowed down Lu Heishui's speed and his breath became chaotic. Your Excellency, I have no grudges with the Hong family martial arts school for a long time and have no grudges recently. Is there anything I can do to offend you? Before he could finish speaking, Su Chen seized the opportunity and threw a heavy punch, landing straight on Lu Heishui. Bang bang. With a few punches, Lu Heishui was beaten to the brink of death by Su Chen, but Su Chen did not stop. Until Lu Heishui was completely unrecognizable, Su Chen finally dispelled his hatred and stopped fighting. He didn't pay any attention to the blood dripping on his fist. He took out a blunt knife and inserted it into Lu Heishui's heart, completely ending the opponent. End of this chapter. Chapter 7. Iron Wire Fist Perfection, Nameless Palm Technique. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7. Iron Wire Fist Perfection, Nameless Palm Technique. The great revenge was avenged, and the big stone that had accumulated in Su Chen's heart finally disappeared, and his whole body became comfortable. He no longer needs to worry about the other party's retaliation. Su Chen looked at his fists stained with flesh and blood, feeling sad in his heart. Lu Heishui may never have thought that the boy who killed him was a few days ago, who was almost driven to ruin his family by them. The big commotion just now may catch the attention of the Blackwater gang. If they get entangled, they may not be able to escape. Moreover, there are other gangs taking advantage of the fire tonight, so it's better to withdraw first. After a moment, Su Chen tidied up his mood, packed everything he found, and left the yard in the darkness. Before leaving, he quietly set fire to Lu Heishui's room. Not long after leaving the yard, Su Chen heard the shouting and fighting inside the yard. Sure enough, people from other gangs took action, but unfortunately they were one step late. Su Chen shook his head. As early as he arrived, he had already discovered other members of the hidden gang. These gangs should have received news long ago, taking advantage of the fierce struggle between the Tiger Gang and the Blackwater Gang to seize the opportunity to rob. They just didn't expect that Su Chen would kill Lu Heishui halfway and snatch away the spoils of the Heishui Gang. Not long after, Su Chen returned home. With the faint candlelight, Su Chen opened the package. Inside, there is Lu Heishui's personal collection and the wealth of the entire Tiger Gang. A land deed and 30.1 or 2 silver coins. After opening it, Su Chen's expectation on his face was somewhat stagnant. Isn't this land deed his family's land deed? The speed of this Han's pawnshop is really fast. Just this local gang, it's a bit poor. Su Chen let out a light sigh. The two gangs were only 30.1 or 2, which made him slightly disappointed. However, upon second thought, it seemed normal that the Blackwater Gang and the Tiger Gang were already small gangs, and how much money could they have? Besides, the two of them are still warriors, which consumes more energy. Having these is also considered good. Later, he turned his gaze to a book. A charming young master. He quietly read out the font on the cover, and a hint of doubt couldn't help but appear on his face. A book with some colors, is Lu Heishui a personal treasure? With such confusion, Su Chen opened the book and after reading for a while, his gaze showed a clear expression. So it's not a color novel, but a palm technique secret book. Most of the books are about the romantic stories of the young master. If it weren't for accidentally seeing the illustration of practicing palm techniques, I'm afraid Su Chen wouldn't have thought that the other party would embed a palm technique in a color novel. Just having illustrations is not enough, those heavily marked fonts should be the content of the secret script. Su Chen flipped through the rest of the content and noticed that some of the words deliberately accentuated the marks. So he took out his pen and ink, and extracted these words. Soon, a cultivation method of several hundred words was presented to Su Chen. Fortunately, I've been reading for the past few days. Otherwise, I wouldn't really understand. Su Chen secretly felt relieved and looked over word by word. After reading it, the panel did not display the words of the secret script. Do we need to practice once? He couldn't help but guess. Although it was already late now, it couldn't stop Su Chen's excitement in the slightest. After remembering the several moves on the secret script, Su Chen began to practice in the room. There it is. After completing the drill, Su Chen looked at the panel and a palm technique was indeed refreshed. Martial Arts. Iron Thread Fist, Major 1%. Nameless Palm Technique, Beginner 1%, Simple Mode. Iron Wire Fist 0 times, 10 taels of silver/time, Unknown Palm Technique 0 times, 1 tael of silver/time. Upon seeing this, he let out a light sigh. He didn't expect Lu Heishui to be carrying a secret script. No wonder he could have been deadlocked with him for so long even after being injured. However, he probably hasn't reached his home yet, otherwise he wouldn't have been attacked and injured by the leader of the Tiger Gang. Recharge 10 taels, Iron Wire Fist Open Simple Mode. Su Chen had a thought and plan to first cultivate Iron Thread Fist, which is the foundation of his current standing. Simple Mode Activation. Punch out of thin air for half an hour, and you can practice Iron Wire Fist to perfection. Quickly, the panel gave a prompt, but Su Chen did not immediately start punching, but instead looked at the panel. Simple Mode. Iron Wire Fist 0 times, 10 taels of gold per time, next time it will be 10 taels too. Gold. That's 100 taels. Even though Su Chen was prepared, he was also startled by the amount and suddenly increased it tenfold, which was a bit outrageous. Let's take a look at the Nameless Palm Technique again. Recharge 1 or 2 and activate the simple mode of the Nameless Palm Technique. Panel prompt sounds. Simple Mode Activation. Soak in the sand 50 times to practice the Nameless Palm Technique to a minimum. It's really simple. There happens to be sand in the yard. Su Chen quickly arrived at the yard, placed his hand in the sand, and fiercely thrust 50 times. At the moment of completion, Su Chen felt his palms becoming slightly hot. He opened his hand and saw that his palm had become slightly harder, as if there were calluses covering its surface. Even the strength increased slightly, with a quick palm strike and a faint whistling sound. This unnamed palm technique may not necessarily be weaker than Iron Wire Fist. Feeling the change brought by his palm, Su Chen couldn't help but ponder. Just as Iron Wire Fist entered full swing, his strength also increased. I didn't expect this palm technique to bring such an effect even after its completion. He looked at his arm, like a muscular man who had been exercising for over a decade, with clear lines and a hardness as hard as iron. With a gentle grip, there was a strong sense of power. Combined with the boxing techniques, Su Chen felt that he could now hit 10 Lu Heishui. Next, recharge 5 Liang and activate the simple mode of Nameless Palm Technique. Simple Mode Activation. Soak in the sand 100 times to fully practice the Nameless Palm Technique. After thrusting 100 times, a warm wave struck, and Su Chen's palms changed again, becoming more resilient. 31 taels left, there are 15 taels left. It can still be opened again, so let's use it. After a moment of contemplation, Su Chen no longer hesitated. He believed that only with his own strength could he have better self-protection ability, and that he could earn more when he ran out of money. Recharge 10 Liang and activate the simple mode of Nameless Palm Technique. Simple Mode Activation. Soak 200 times in the sand to fully practice the Nameless Palm Technique. 15 minutes later, Su Chen slapped a stone with his palm, and with a loud bang, a large hole was opened in the brick below the stone. On the other hand, Su Chen's palm not only was not injured, but even had no pain sensation. Very strong. I estimate I can hit 10 Lu Heishui. This time Lu Heishui is unharmed. He secretly rejoiced, somewhat surprised by the power of the Nameless Palm Technique. However, the power of this palm technique is so great that it's not good to always call it the Nameless Palm Technique. Anyway, it was trained by thrusting sand, so why not call it the iron sand palm? As Su Chen's thoughts fell, the panel suddenly changed. The original column of Nameless palm technique has now been transformed into iron sand palm. Martial arts. Iron thread fist, De Cheng 1%. Iron sand palm, perfect 1%. After Su Chen looked at the eye panel with satisfaction, a smile appeared on her face. In this chaotic world, I finally have some self-protection power. But for now, let's wash and sleep first. End of this chapter. Chapter 8. Official Disciple, Introduction Ceremony. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8. Official Disciple, Introduction Ceremony. The next morning, Su Chen punched out of thin air for half an hour, each punch wielding a strong sense of power. After the fight, his whole body was sweating profusely, but he didn't feel any fatigue at all. At this moment, Iron Wire Fist finally caught up with Iron Sand Palm and reached a perfect state. On his own arm, Su Chen could notice that the color of the bloodline had become incredibly bright red, even faintly showing a trend from red to black. I believe that as long as I activate the simple mode again, Iron Wire Fist can truly be completed. At that time, my own strength will definitely be able to take it to the next level. If Senior Brother Li Mo knew that I had fully practiced Iron Wire Fist now, I'm afraid I would be shocked to drop my chin. Su Chen wiped the sweat off his cheeks and couldn't help but chuckle lightly. He learned from other disciples that Li Mo had been practicing for 2 years, and Iron Wire Fist was only a great achievement. The blood line on my hand has not completely deepened yet. On the other hand, Su Chen had already reached the opponent's skill level for 2 years in just over 10 days, which can be said to be quite rapid. I don't know at what level my strength is in Baisher City. On second thought, Su Chen pondered, but soon he no longer hesitated. Regardless of his strength, he cultivates to become stronger, not for comparison. Returning to the room and having breakfast, Su Chen had not yet left when he heard a knocking at the door. He opened the door and saw 2 men tied with red belts. The 2 of them saw Su Chen and said expressionlessly, "We are members of the Blood Clothes Gang. It's the beginning of the month, and it's time to pay the first installment." Blood Clothes Gang. Su Chen has heard of this gang. It is a relatively strong gang in the outer city, far from being comparable to the Tiger Gang and Blackwater Gang. Su Chen pursed his lips and asked, "How much?" 10 won, the person replied. After a moment of silence, Su Chen took out 10 won coins from his pocket and handed them to the other party. After receiving the money, the other party didn't say much, then turned around and walked towards the next house. After standing at the door and looking for a while, Su Chen found that the next door was very willing to pay, which was also 10 won, so he stopped paying attention. Weighing his few money bags, Su Chen closed the door and stood up to leave. He went straight to the tea house, studying and occasionally looking at the courtyard of the Blackwater Gang across from him. It seems that the confrontation last night was very intense, with people coming and going in and out of the yard early in the morning, cleaning up the blood stains on the ground. In half a day's work, the Blackwater Gang was completely reduced to history, and a new gang was born. This is quite similar to what Su Chen had anticipated. This gang should be one of the gangs that attacked the Blackwater Gang last night. Without Lu Heishui, the entire Blackwater Gang would be like a scattered sand, unable to stir up much wind and waves, and would naturally be eradicated by the other party. Su Chen saw that except for Lu Heishui's 2 confidants who were missing, everyone else quickly fell into the arms of this new gang. Becoming one of them, Su Chen studied until evening before returning. In the next few days, Su Chen never went to the tea house again. He continued to delve into the study of De Qian's writing while searching for ways to make money. The reason for learning is because Su Chen had a vague conjecture in his heart. Although the panel can help him quickly master martial arts, it is not omnipotent. There is a premise, which is that Su Chen wants to practice martial arts. For example, when practicing Iron Wire Fist, Su Chen watched Li Mo practice it once before it was displayed on the panel. When practicing iron sand palm, Su Chen also combined the secret script into a complete one and practiced it again before the panel displayed it. That is to say, if Su Chen wants to learn the secret script, there is at least one prerequisite, which is to have practiced it. But, if in the future, the entire secret script only has text and no moves, and Su Chen wants to practice, but can't understand it even after reading it, how can he still practice? That's why Su Chen thought about reading and studying. There are not too many problems in terms of learning, but the difficulties in making money are beyond Su Chen's expectations. He thought it wouldn't be too difficult to find a way to make money with his martial identity. However, it has been proven that no matter which world it is, it doesn't matter. The truly easy way to make money will not be open to you. The ways of making money that flow out in the market are basically not suitable for Su Chen. Not only because of overuse, but also because the money earned is too little. After searching for several days, Su Chen gave up. As for relying on knowledge from past lives to make money, it can only be said that I have overthinked it. Su Chen was just a truck driver in his previous life. He didn't know anything about making perfume, spices, glass, etc. Even if there is, others may not necessarily cooperate with Su Chen. Of course, he can also force both sides to cooperate, but in this way, it will inevitably cause trouble. Those profitable industries are mostly monopolized by gangs or families. Su Chen wants to intervene, and waiting for him will be retaliation from these behind-the-scenes forces. Baishur City has its own operating system, and anyone attempting to break this system will trigger backlash. Unless Su Chen has absolute strength, he is not afraid of any challenges. But unfortunately, he doesn't currently have it. Fortunately, it has been almost 20 days since I learned boxing, and it's time to go to the martial arts school. On this day, the Hong family martial arts school. It looks particularly lively. Turns out today is the day when Hong Ming accepts his apprentices. Since half a month ago, when Qin Hao's martial arts were introduced and his iron line was produced, Hong Ming promised to take Qin Hao as his disciple as long as he could stabilize the iron line. Qin Hao stabilized his bloodline as promised 3 days ago, and Hong Ming was overjoyed to learn about it. Directly declare Qin Hao as the 8th official disciple of the Hong family martial arts school. For this reason, Hong Ming specially selected an auspicious day and set it 3 days later, intending to make Qin Hao officially apprentice. At the same time, several other disciples were notified of this matter. Except for those who have important matters to attend, most of the others who can come have come. Qin Hao, come here and I'll introduce you to some of your senior brothers. Hong Ming, with a bright red face, greeted Qin Hao, who was dressed noticeably differently from usual, with a friendly attitude. He introduced several people one by one. Your eldest senior brother Wei Ping and 4th senior brother Wu Hai are escorting, while 3rd senior sister Lu Fang is doing business outside. These are your 2nd senior brother Zhou Tao, 5th senior brother Hu Zong, 6th senior brother Dialect Sun, and 7th senior brother Li Mo. Qin Hao has met 2nd senior brother, 5th senior brother, 6th senior brother, and 7th senior brother. After the introduction, Qin Hao arched his hand towards the 4 of them. Ha ha ha, I've heard my master talk about Qin Hao's junior brother for a long time. Seeing him today, he's truly a talented person. 2nd senior brother Zhou Tao arched his hand and smiled, while the others also greeted him one after another. Upon hearing these words, Qin Hao's expression became somewhat reserved. He scratched his head and smiled, not commenting on the compliments from the crowd. There was still some time before the meal, and after Hong Ming introduced it, he left the time for Qin Hao and others. Upon seeing the situation, Zhou Tao and a few others approached and started talking to Qin Hao. At the same time, Su Chen looked at the long-lost martial arts school with a sigh on his face. I don't know if the martial arts school has forgotten about him as an apprentice since he hasn't come for so many days. Shaking his head and dispelling his wild thoughts, Su Chen walked towards the martial arts school. If you have extra investment opportunities, why not invest in this book? Also, please follow up on the reading. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. This sun is no weaker than Qin Hao. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9. This sun is no weaker than Qin Hao. Qin Hao's junior brother is really impressive. He sensed the iron wire in half a month, but it was completely stable in less than half a month. What's his name, junior brother? He will become our senior brother from now on. Senior brother Qin Hao is no longer from the same world as us. Yeah, didn't you see that all the other senior brothers were called back by the master and specifically came to attend Qin's introductory ceremony? In the outer courtyard, several disciples who were practicing were listening to the movements coming from the inner courtyard and had no intention of practicing. Their gaze occasionally brushed over the high wall, eager to pierce through, landing on that familiar and unfamiliar figure. There was an indescribable envy in his eyes. The guy who came later than them in the past has now transformed into the presence they look up to. They couldn't help but feel a sense of impermanence in the world. Liemo walked out of the inner courtyard and looked at the group of people who had no intention of practicing. He opened his mouth, but ultimately did not speak up to scold. Glancing at Qin Hao surrounded by Zhou Tao and others, he thought for a moment and ultimately decided to come out and breathe some air. After all, staying inside doesn't have much in common with them. Compared to him, Zhou Tao and others have good family backgrounds, and Qin Hao is naturally willing to make friends with them. Instead of going up to join the fun, it's better to be more witty, so as not to have a hot face pressed against a cold buttocks. Moreover, deep down in his heart, there was still some resistance to joining the fun like this. Suddenly, Liemo saw Su Chen walking towards him. Junior brother Su, you. He looked at Su Chen, not seen for half a month, as if Su Chen's spirit had been refreshed. Senior brother Liemo. Su Chen replied with a smile on his face. Liemo saw Su Chen smile and hesitated to speak, finally sighing lightly. It's good if you're here. How have you been practicing standing up these days? If you have nothing to do today, then stay and I'll officially teach you martial arts. For more than 10 days without seeing Su Chen, he thought Su Chen had given up practicing martial arts. Seeing Su Chen at this moment, he originally wanted to inquire about the reason, but after thinking about it, he decided not to. He had seen Su Chen in a difficult situation before, and thought that after Su Chen became a disciple, he would practice more diligently. However, Su Chen spent 3 days fishing and 2 days sunbathing, with no focus on practicing martial arts. After several unsuccessful persuasions, he gradually stopped paying attention to Su Chen. After all, Su Chen has already become a disciple, so he still has to fulfill his responsibilities. So he plans to directly teach Su Chen the martial arts, and the final outcome will depend on Su Chen's own destiny. Su Chen didn't notice Liemo's expression and hesitated for a moment after hearing the words, but still said. Senior brother, this time I came to ask you, how are the levels of martial artists divided? Why did you ask such a good question? Liemo saw Su Chen's ambition again, his face slightly changed, and he asked. Su Chen didn't care either, spreading his arms and controlling his bloodline, gradually revealing it. Did you practice bleeding lines? Upon seeing this, Liemo grabbed Su Chen's arm with a snap and looked carefully. As soon as the bloodline appeared, his eyes suddenly widened and he asked in a surprised voice. Su Chen nodded and said, as I practiced, I appeared. This is really. Liemo hesitated and didn't know what to say. But soon, he shook suddenly, as if recalling something. He murmured, I remember you've only been apprenticed for over 20 days. When did you practice the iron wire? Just today. After thinking for a moment, Su Chen casually replied with a date. Ha, good kid, let's go, I'll take you to see master. After a moment of confusion, Liemo suddenly smiled and took Su Chen's hand, directly entering the inner courtyard. At this time, the inner courtyard. Qin Hao was like a dazzling moon, surrounded by stars and moons. Zhou Tao smiled and said, with Qin Hao's talent, I'm afraid it won't be long before I can master Iron Wire Fist. Maybe we won't be your opponents by then. Senior brother Zhou Tao praised me falsely, and I also rely entirely on diligent practice. Qin Hao smiled shyly. Junior brother is still too humble. Zhou Tao shook his head. He knew better than Qin Hao about his talent for practicing Iron Wire Fist in a month. He randomly changed his tone, I don't know if junior brother is available tonight. Speaking of which, as senior brother, I have never entertained junior brother well before. Taking advantage of junior brother's happy occasion today, senior brother plans to hold a banquet in the Drunken Immortal Tower to entertain junior brother. I hope senior brother can come with us. Upon hearing this, Qin Hao's expression moved slightly. Drunken Immortal Tower was a famous restaurant in Baishur City. I heard that a meal costs tens to hundreds of taels, and even his father is not qualified to go. I didn't expect Zhou Tao to invite me as soon as he said, which made him feel honored, but he still said, Senior brother, will this be too costly? Zhou Tao waved his hand and said, Hey, junior brother, it's just the Drunken Immortal Tower. With my strength, I can't eat every day, but 3 or 4 times a month, it's still possible. Upon hearing these words, Qin Hao stopped insisting and said, Since that's the case, thank you very much, senior brother. Just wait for junior brother's words, Zhou Tao smiled. Hey, isn't that senior brother Liemo? He's in such a hurry, what's the point? At this moment, Emperor Hu saw Liemo hurriedly approaching with a puzzled expression on his face. Liemo, what's wrong? Hongming also saw Liemo and asked. Liemo stopped and bowed, saying, Master, I have something to tell you. Someone in our martial arts school has sensed the bloodline again. Oh. Upon hearing this, Hongming's gaze suddenly fell on Su Chen. He came to Su Chen and gestured for him to show off. Su Chen skillfully displayed his bloodline. Looking at the faint bloodlines on Su Chen's arm, Hongming nodded slightly and said, Okay, not bad. With Qin Hao in front of him, his interest in Su Chen is clearly not high. At this moment, Liemo spoke up, Master, junior brother Su has only been joining the martial arts school for less than 20 days. As soon as these words were spoken, Su Chen could feel that everyone's gaze suddenly fell on him. Even Hongming looked at Su Chen with a hint of surprise. He patted his head as if he suddenly remembered Su Chen. Are you the disciple who apprenticed a while ago? For Su Chen, Hongming did not have a deep impression. The only thing that impressed him was his firmness and cheerfulness when he paid the money. Su Chen nodded slightly. That's great. Alright, if you can stabilize your bloodline like Qin Hao within a month, I will officially take you as an apprentice and waive your tuition fees. Upon hearing these words, Qin Hao's face slightly changed, but at this moment, no one cared. Thank you very much, master. Su Chen arched his hand and thanked, saying that these reactions were all within his expectations and did not feel strange. He did not expect to waive tuition fees. Today is a day of double happiness. Su Chen, why don't you stay and have dinner together? As the meal approached, Hongming decided to leave Su Chen behind and have a meal together. At the dinner table, Hongming treated Qin Hao and Su Chen equally, but upon closer inspection, it was evident that he preferred Qin Hao more. But it wasn't too cold toward Su Chen either. In his opinion, if Su Chen could stabilize his bloodline within a month, he may not be weaker than Qin Hao in the future. Qin Hao, who was originally in the limelight, became a bit gloomy and unhappy due to Su Chen's appearance. Su Chen naturally noticed the change in Qin Hao's expression, but did not pay attention. Faced with congratulations from Zhou Tao and others, he simply responded with a few words, with a calm attitude. Quickly, full of wine and food. Zhou Tao and Qin Hao left together, while Li Mo and Su Chen walked out of the yard. After enduring it for too long, Su Chen looked at Li Mo and asked the question in his heart. Senior brother, I would like to ask how the realm of martial artists is divided. End of this chapter. Chapter 10. Classification of realms and ways to make money. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10. Classification of realms and ways to make money. Realm. That's right. With your cultivation speed, junior brother, you will eventually stabilize the iron line. By then, you can enter the realm of strength cultivation. Li Mo hesitated for a moment, subconsciously trying to advise Su Chen not to be too ambitious. Upon second thought, Su Chen had already sensed his health line, and stabilizing it was only a matter of time. The realm of practicing strength. Su Chen chewed on it carefully, recalling the process of practicing iron wire fist, but felt an increase in strength. Li Mo nodded and said, well, junior brother, you might think that practicing strength is about practicing strength. But in reality, practicing strength focuses on attack and defense. Although it can improve one's strength, the main focus is still on the strength of attack and defense. You may not have felt it yet, but as you practice for a long time, you will be able to feel the changes in yourself more clearly. Especially if you practice iron wire fist, your attack power will greatly increase. Of course, defense and strength will also increase, but relatively speaking, the improvement is not as good as attack power. After all, iron wire fist is an attacking fist technique. Li Mo said a lot in one breath, then looked at Su Chen and saw that Su Chen was silent, without paying attention. He knew that Su Chen needed time to digest. During this period, besides increasing my strength, my attack power has indeed greatly increased. After all, I have mastered martial arts. However, due to practicing iron sand palm, my palm's defense seems to have become stronger. Based on his own cultivation during this period, Su Chen confirmed his words with Li Mo without much deviation. Senior brother, how are the specific divisions of training strength? Su Chen looked up and asked. After a moment of silence, Li Mo replied, there is no specific division. I only know that there are 4 stages of practicing strength. Beginner, 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 and perfectionist, corresponding to the 4 stages of iron wire fist. However, I remember my master once said that the training characteristics of different martial arts are different, such as iron wire fist, which relies on iron wire to judge. Red Falcon Fist, Red Line Fist, and Tong Bei Fist are similar to ours. But other boxing and leg techniques are not the same, some are through imprints, some are through the color of the skin film. After listening to Li Mo's introduction, Su Chen had a preliminary assessment of his own realm. I have just reached the perfect level of iron wire fist, and if I were to reach the corresponding level of training, I should have just reached the perfect level of training. However, my iron sand palm has also reached the perfect level. In real terms, I should be a bit stronger than those martial artists who have just reached the perfect level of training. After pondering for a moment, Su Chen had a new question. Senior brother, what is the realm after practicing strength? You have quite a few questions. Li Mo chuckled lightly, but he didn't care. Perhaps it was because Su Chen showed closeness, and he was also willing to get along with her. I have heard my master mention this before. After practicing strength, the realm is to practice strength, but I am not sure about the specific manifestation. But my master once said that 10 highly skilled warriors are not opponents of one skilled warrior. Those who practice martial arts are truly strong. In Baishir City, there are no more martial artists who have truly entered the stage of practicing martial arts than 2 palms. Each one is a prominent figure in Baishir City. Speaking of the practitioner of martial arts, Li Mo's face showed a hint of envy and awe. Is it difficult to practice hard? Su Chen asked. It's difficult. Li Mo's expression became serious. You should know that ordinary people lack talent and resources, and even if they practice for a lifetime, they cannot reach the realm of strength cultivation. Not to mention practicing strength, even practicing to the extreme requires a lot of time, energy, and wealth. Like me, I almost used all my possessions to cultivate, but still couldn't achieve great success. I don't know how much time and resources it will take to achieve success. Upon hearing this, Su Chen fell silent for a moment before thinking of himself. Sure enough, it's the panel awesome, so I can cultivate so fast. Of course, it's also related to my diligence. Later, Su Chen asked a few more questions. Knowing that even Hongming has not yet entered the realm of energy, I have gained a deeper understanding of practicing energy. I originally wanted to continue asking, but Liemo doesn't know much about exercises related to strength. So it was abandoned. In the afternoon, Liemo left the martial arts school with Su Chen. The two of them walked and chatted, and during this time they also met Qin Hao, who was drunk. They greeted each other and left separately. Su Chen, aren't you short of money? Well, this is the fastest way senior brother can think of getting money. Upon hearing these words, Su Chen's face turned black. Unexpectedly, Liemo, who had thick eyebrows and big eyes, even started joking with him. The two of them are currently standing below a high platform, surrounded by people. On the high platform, there are 4 big characters prominently written. Compete for marriage. Junior brother, this family is a martial arts competition for marriage today. It is one of the wealthy merchants in the outer city, with a wealth of thousands. If you get her daughter's favor, you will have enough money to manage for the rest of your life. Seeing Su Chen's black face, Liemo couldn't help but joke. Senior brother, are there any other ways to make money? Su Chen asked helplessly, ignoring Liemo's dishonesty. Unfortunately, if I were as young as you, I would probably give it a try. Liemo shook his head and sighed lightly, quickly putting away his smile. Let's go, take you to the real place where you make money. Half an hour later, the two of them arrived outside the yamen, and Su Chen looked at Liemo in confusion. This is the wanted list. Liemo pointed to a portrait and said. Su Chen looked up. His name is Lu Tong, and he has committed the crime of killing multiple times. He has dozens of lives under his command, suspected to have completed his training. He is wanted for 50 taels, regardless of life or death. His eyes suddenly lit up, with 50 taels all over his eyes. Junior brother, if you are stronger, you can go to the government to work as a sword catcher, but now, I'm afraid it won't work. Liemo patted Su Chen's shoulder and said. Su Chen nodded. It's not as simple as imagined to apprehend wanted criminals. This Lu Tong committed 7 or 8 cases and killed dozens of lives. But until now, the person has not been caught, which is enough to show their strength. These wanted criminals are all blood-licking guys. If their strength is not strong, it's uncertain who will kill who. After scanning around, Su Chen withdrew his gaze, feeling lost in thought. Seeing Su Chen's posture, Li Maoyan hurriedly said, Junior brother, don't take it too hard to take on the task. Su Chen shook his head and said, I'm going to take on the mission with my strength, isn't it just seeking death? That's good, let's go. Besides these, you can also earn money through methods such as bodyguards, caregivers, affiliations with gangs and shops, but it all depends on your stable bloodline. Later, Liemo told Su Chen about some ways in which martial artists earn money. Now Su Chen has not completely stabilized his bloodline, and his reputation has not been spread. Others dare not use him and will not use him. These methods can only be truly introduced to Su Chen after he officially becomes a disciple and spreads his fame. In the evening, Liemo invited Su Chen to have a meal, but Su Chen did not refuse. After finishing, Su Chen returned satisfied. He had already learned from Liemo about a suitable way of making money for himself. End of this chapter.